Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. This is the second theory session of this chapter, and in the earlier session I explained that what is meant by diversity and why there is a need for the classification, right? So basically the different living forms are present, the varied living forms are present in our surrounding, and due to such a wide range of diversity, it is very difficult so as to understand each and every living organism. This is why the classification is to be done, and the classification provides different advantages regarding what? Regarding the study of different living organisms and their characteristic features. Now the point is that what should be the criteria for the classification of living organisms? What should be the base? How this diversity or these diverse living forms they can be divided into groups? So that is possible when we understand the differences or their similarities, right? So in today's session I'm going to explain that what different criteria are used for the classification of these diverse living forms. So this criteria which decides or which helps in the classification is actually shown here in the form of this flowchart. So the very first point to be considered is the type of the cell. That means the organisms, each and every organism is present in our surrounding and each is made up of a cell. So which type of cell is it made up of? Whether it is a prokaryotic or it is made up of eukaryotic cells. This becomes the first base so as to classify the organisms, right? Further, the number of the cells. What is the number of the cell present in the living organism? Whether it is made up of a single cell or it is made up of many cells. Then further, these many cells, how they are arranged. This is the next criteria. If it is made up of a single cell, it is said to be a unicellular organism. If it is made up of many cells, then it is known as the multicellular organisms. And for your information, these many number of cells, they are organized in the living body or the organism's body, right? And what type of organization is there? That becomes the next criteria so as to classify the organisms. Therefore, I have highlighted it here as the body organization. That whether in this particular multicellular organism the cells are present in the colonial form or they have been organized in the form of tissues or the organs or the organ systems. Then here I must say that if such type of body organization is observed, definitely there must be the division of labor. So what type of division of labor is there? That is how the living functions or the work has been distributed in different part of the body. This is further the next level or the next criteria for the classification of the living organisms. After this, the next criteria is the mode of nutrition. You understand what is nutrition? It is the process by which the living organisms obtain their food material or they synthesize their food material. So basically it is related to the nourishment. And you know very well that this nourishment, how much important it is for a living body, right? So if we are comparing or if we are studying the classification, then the next base is that whether the organism is autotrophic or it is heterotrophic. Autotrophic means self-nourishing, right? That means the organisms, they are able to nourish themselves. And how is it possible? If they are able to synthesize their own food. So organisms, whether they are able to synthesize their own food or they are dependent on others for their nourishment, then it is the next base. Heterotrophic It means that the organisms are dependent on others for their nourishment. Now it can be they are dependent on other autotrophic organisms, or they are dependent on other heterotrophic organisms or dead or decayed material. So all these type of organisms, they are coming in the group that is heterotrophic. Now you may find it difficult to understand it separately, like prokaryotic, eukaryotic one group, then unicellular, multicellular one group. No, it is not like this. There is the flow over there. See, if the organism is prokaryotic, it is placed in one group. Then if the organism is eukaryotic, it is forming the another group. Further, if the eukaryotic organisms are there, whether these are unicellular or multicellular, after observing this feature, they are subdivided. Right? Further, when the dissimilarities appear in these individual groups, the subdivision takes place. So criteria is related to these points, but of course they are forming a common downflow over there in the chart. Fine. So now I'm going to discuss about each and every point in detail, and I will explain that how they are forming the different groups. Right? So let us focus on these points further. So the first criteria discussed is the type of cell. I already said that all organisms are made up of cells, and these cells, they can be either prokaryotic or the eukaryotic. Prokaryotic means what? The cell in which the developed nucleus is absent. That means what? Nucleus is the director of the cell, right? If it is absent, how the cell will function? Isn't it? In such organisms, the genetic material or the nuclear material is present. That is, the chromosomes are of course present, but they are not separated from the cytoplasm by the nuclear membrane. So in this case, the primitive type of nucleus is present, right? And that type of nucleus, or that region where this genetic material is present in such cells, is known as the nucleoid. Fine. So the organisms which are having the primitive type of nucleus, they are placed in the same group, and that individual group is known as the monera. So the very first group that we must study while understanding the classification of organisms is the group monera. We can call it as the kingdom, right? It is first kingdom, that is kingdom monera. Now on the other hand, what is this eukaryotic cell? Eukaryotes means the cell which is having the true type of nucleus. What is meant by this true type of nucleus? It means that a developed nucleus present in these cells, which is separated from the surrounding or from the cytoplasm by the nuclear membrane. Right? So such type of cells which are having this developed nucleus, all these are known as the eukaryotes. Now further, these eukaryotes, whether they are made up of a single cell or multiple cells, or what type of body organization is there, further on the basis of these basic properties, these eukaryotic organisms are classified into 4 kingdoms. What are they? It is number 1, the protista, fungi, plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. So now if you just focus on these names, that is fungi, plant, animal, you must be knowing the basic concept of all these organisms, right? If you have seen this a piece of bread, over there some molds are developing. What is that mold? It is not a very developed organism where the well-defined body organization is present. It's a multicellular colony of this fungus, right? And if we compare this fungus with the plant and the animal, you can see how much variation is there. So I have just explained that how this grouping is done. All these eukaryotes, they are classified into different groups on the basis of their various characteristic features. So the first criteria, I hope it is very clear. The next criteria is the number of cells, right? So let me show you that also. So on the basis of the number of cells, All these organisms, they can be either unicellular or they can be multicellular. Unicellular, you know very well, it means the organisms which are made up of only one cell, while the multicellular organisms are those which are made up of many cells, right? Now, for your information, I know you know the concept of unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular, the organism, a single cell, is capable of performing all the life-sustaining functions, which is not so in the case of multicellular organisms. In the multicellular, the group of cells, they are working together so as to perform the particular function. Right. Now, when we are studying about the classification, I must say that all prokaryotic organisms, they are unicellular. In the above chart, I explained you that organisms, they can be prokaryotic or eukaryotic, isn't it? So prokaryotic, they are forming a single group, that is the monera. And the specific feature is what? That all these monerans, they are made up of only a single cell. So now I can say that these are the simplest living forms on the earth, right? Well, on the other hand, the eukaryotic organisms, they can be either unicellular or they can be multicellular, right? In the above chart, what I explained there, eukaryotes, they are subdivided into different groups. Do you remember what are they? Protista, fungi, plants, and animals, right? So out of all these four groups, the very first one, that is the protista, this eukaryotic group is unicellular. So in other words, what I can say here is that all eukaryotic unicellular organisms, they are forming a common group which is known as the group protista. Now you understand how the classification is followed, right? Initially, the concept began with the type of cell. Then further, if we move towards the number of cells, the subclassification appears now, isn't it? Similarly, when we proceed further, you will see that there is further subclassification. For now, you just understand the level, the number of cells in the organism is the next criteria to subclassify the living organisms. So, can you just understand some of the examples? You can quote them yourself. Unicellular organisms like bacteria, euglena, amoeba, paramecium, chlamydomonas, trypanosoma, etc. The list is endless. Fine. Now, whereas in the list of multicellular organisms, which organisms can be quoted here? They are like human beings, birds, plants, dogs, or whatever multicellular organisms you can see with the naked eyes. All will come in the multicellular group. Now, the next criteria to subclassify the organisms is the body organization. That means when these multicellular organisms are there, then what type of complexity is present among them? So that is the next further criteria for the classification. So as I said that multicellular organisms, they are made up of more than single cell. So in this case, they are able to show the division of labor. What is this division of labor? It is defined as the the work or the function is distributed in the different group of cells within the colony or the body. Such type of property is known as division of labor. Well, I can say that the distribution of work, if we have to define it in the other way, then I can say it is like distribution of work or the function in the different group of cells within the colony or the body. That is what is actually meant by division of labor. Now, if this division of labor is considered, I hope you understand this concept very well. For example, in your own body, in our own body, let us say there is one digestive system which is associated with the digestion of food material. On the other hand, there is another system, let us say for example respiratory system, which is meant for, yes, for the exchange of gases and the oxidation of food material, of course. So this type of division is observed in the multicellular organisms. Now, these multicellular organisms, some of them live in colony, right? Whereas in the other organisms, the complex body organization is observed. And this complexity is related to the association of these cells so as to form a particular body part. For example, the cells, they can form the tissues are forming the organs are forming the organ system, and the different organ systems, they are working together in coordination with each other so as to form a living organism or to support the life of a living organism. So this type of differences in the complexity of the body design is the next level for the classification, of course. Besides this, the presence or the absence of the cell wall is the another criteria, which I can of course link here with the body organization. There are the organisms in which the cells are having the outer dead covering, which is known as the cell wall. On the other hand, there are the organisms in which the cell wall is absent. So this presence or the absence of the cell wall is the next criteria so as to subclassify the organisms. Then further, these type of organisms with or without the cell wall, what type of complexity is there in the arrangement of the cells, that is further becoming the base for the subclassification of these living organisms. In addition to this particular point, another criteria is the mode of nutrition that these organisms are following. So as I already explained you that nutrition is related to the nourishment, right? And on the basis of this, the organisms, they are classified as autotrophs or the heterotrophs. Autotrophic organisms, they are those which are able to synthesize their own food. For example, all plants will come under this category. All plants possess this particular property. Further, heterotrophs means the those organisms which are dependent on the producers or for other organisms for their own nourishment. And of course, which organisms will come in this category? They are the animals. So this is how. Now of course, the animals and the plants, they are made up of many number of cells. Now these are subclassified further on the basis of the complexity. That means whether the tissues are well developed or not, whether these tissues are forming the organs and the organ systems or not. Then further, what type of body design and the body development is present in these organisms. On these basis, the organisms are further classified. So this is all about the criteria which actually helps in the classification and the subclassification of the living organisms. Further, we will study that how this classification is actually related to the evolution and what type of classification is actually studied according to your syllabus and everything, right? So till then, thank you so much. We'll come back soon in the next session with the further part of this chapter. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.